Hello again, dear participants. After lunch, this chair will be chaired by Professor Yin Li, and there will be two presentations by Dilvin Ipek and Zahurul Karim. I want to grant the floor for Professor Li to chair the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to chair the first session this afternoon. We have two speakers as indicated. Our first speaker in the program, Dr. Akinbal from Nigeria, unfortunately is not here. So our first speaker this session will be Dr. Dilvin Ipek from Turkey. She graduated from Edge University in 2006 with a bachelor degree in food engineering. And in 2011, she received a PhD degree in food engineering from Kanakel Onsets Mart University. She is an expert on food microbiology and food safety risk management, etc. So she will bring a talk on importance of biofilm on food safety sustainability. So Dr. Ipek, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your interest. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to TÜBA and AASSA for this workshop organization and your invitation. My presentation is about importance of the biofilms on food safety sustainability. Here is contents. And now we are starting with the definition. What is the biofilm mean? Biofilm is a micro-ecosystem which is produced for protection and effective nutritional source usage by mono or multi-species microorganisms. Another definition, biofilm is an exopolysaccharide structure which have 3D matrices, water channels, and multilevel bacteria. Biofilm structures include exopolysaccharides, protein, nucleic acid, lipids, phospholipids, and water. And now we are asking, why do microorganisms form biofilms? If we want to summarize the reasons, first of all, protection. Microorganisms in the biofilm matrices are more resistant than planktonic cells. Second, biofilm matrices help to microorganisms for nutrition and also protect the harms of the big food molecules. And the last one, excretory system. Biofilm water channels act like excretory system and remove the metabolites and waste products of the microorganisms. How are biofilm formed? Biofilm forms at three main steps. At the first step, microorganisms can attach the surfaces by using van der Waals and the dipole-dipole bonds. And then these bonds became stronger and irreversible. Then exopolysaccharide biofilm structure occurs and mature by new microorganisms with diversion and new planktonic cell attachment. Finally, mature biofilm structure exposures and the planktonic cells disperse for the new biofilm formations. And as you see in the picture, this is a biofolding on a plate of heat exchanger after 8-hour pasteurization. Biofolding is the accumulation of microorganisms and their metabolites produced such as extracellular polymetric substance on a surface. Organic and inorganic materials of product attached to this structure, and the structure can be seen with eyes easily. In food industry, biofilm can be removed easily but the structure helps the biofilm forming on the surfaces. Food industry and the biofilm. Why does biofilm form in food industry production area? Food is a perfect nutritive medium for microorganisms. When food processing area and surfaces are not cleaned and sanitized effectively, they become a perfect nutritive medium too. Also, food processing area and surfaces have good water activity, pH, and oxidation radiation potential for microorganisms. Also, inadequate cleaning processes is also help to microorganisms for biofilm forming. Microorganisms became resistant to chemicals inadequate. What does biofilm do for food industry? Biofilm became a cross-contamination sources. And also, microorganisms in the biofilm can affect the final product quality, consumer health, and the consumer demand. Corrosion, flow rate in the pipeline, decrease the heat transfer, increase the shear rate, and then increase the economic losses. Also, washing steps can decrease the microbial load nearly too low, but biofilm protect their location on the food. Trimming, cutting, washing, rinsing, dewatering, packaging are all used in the produce industry and are considered to be the primary source of cross-contaminations. Here is some examples for biofilms in various food processing environment. In dairy and dairy process line, the main biofilm, the main microorganisms are Bacillus cereus, Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus aureus, and the Shigella species that can form biofilms. For cut lettuce and the cabbage surface, Salmonella enterica. For poultry and poultry process lines, Salmonella and the Campylobacter species can form biofilm generally. What about Turkey? In Turkey, different process lines investigated for determining main organisms in the production area. As you see from the table, dairy process lines are the main investigated area. Not only bacteria, but also yeast and mold isolated from the process lines like Debaryomyces species, Penicillium, Aspergillus, Trichoderma, and the Cladosporium species. Food safety, sustainability, and biofilm. In the food safety system implementation, food processing surfaces and other production area surfaces are determined as a microbial hazard sources. Biofilms on food cannot be fully removed by food processing and GMP actions. Researchers reported to a significant number of foodborne pathogens on food contact surfaces and biofilms, affecting the quality and the safety of the food products. Listeria monocytogenes, Yersinia enterocolitica, Campylobacter jejuni, Salmonella species, etc., enterohemorrhagic E. coli can easily form biofilm, and these biofilms can be an outbreak source. As I mentioned before, generally, food processing surface biofilms are determined as GMP in food safety system. Also, other surfaces of production area are determined as GMP. And raw material, trimming, cutting, washing, rinsing, the watering, and the packaging steps are determined CCB generally. And now we are asking GMPs be CCPs in reality. Resistance biofilms. Biofilms are more resistant to antimicrobials than planktonic cells and difficult to eliminate them from food processing facilities. Besides, microorganisms are very close in biofilm matrix. They can easily connect and transfer the genetic materials to each other. Antibiotic or clinic chemicals resistance biofilm can easily form. Antibiotic resistance biofilms in food industry. In some researches about antibiotic resistance microorganisms in biofilm, we can see mostly E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and the Salmonella species. Disinfectant resistance microorganisms that could form biofilms in the food industry. Disinfectant resistance microorganisms are reported in different researchers, and the mostly seen microorganisms are, again, E. coli, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Mycobacterium species. Biofilm control techniques, cleaning and disinfection, cleaning in place system, chemical-based control, other approaches of biofilm control, and the hurdle technology can be used for controlling the biofilm. Conclusion and the suggestion. In food safety systems, all production area surfaces are determined as GMP. However, microorganisms in a biofilm structure is not stable. Microorganisms can be easily protected from cleaning agents, sanitizers, biocides, and antibiotics by biofilm. Genetic transmission can occur in biofilm matrix, and resistance genes can easily spread to other microorganisms. Antibiotic and the disinfectant resistance microorganisms are very common in biofilms. Surfaces at all production area should not be only a GMP. Depending on the food processing type, some surfaces should be determined as CCPs. Cleaning process and food safety system effectiveness should be controlled regularly. As a rapid biofilm determination method, ATP bioluminescence can be used, because this method can determine organic material and the microbial load together. According to biofilm status, the system should be updated. Nowadays, antibiotic and disinfectant-resistant microorganisms are very important for consumers. Besides, natural product is important for consumer demand. Natural disinfectants and new cleaning techniques which are effective on biofilms should be designed. My references, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. İpek, for your interesting presentation. We have time for 2 or 3 questions. I have one question. We know that during the food processing, for instance, pasteurization or the other process are applied, and usually most of the microbes will be killed. How can you distinguish, for instance, if there's events, for instance, human-related illness related with microbes, how can you distinguish this is a pure microbes-induced illness or it's a microbial film-induced illness?
Yes. First of all, maybe we can know the pasteurs. GMP is very important. If you have a GMP, a good GMP, and you have if you have a problem in your final product, maybe it can be a biofilm problem. So if we analyze the surface samples, we can see very different and surprised results.
A second question is, I just want to know, for curiosity, do you know if those antimicrobials like bacteriocins, like Nisan, are used in Turkish food industry?
In Turkish food industry, piscicrophilic bacteria, mold and yeast, especially Klebsiella, is very common. Are very common.
My question is, are you using Nisan, which is a bactericin, to kill those pathogens?
In the industry,
Yeah.
In the industry, SIP, clean in place systems are used, hydrogen peroxide, peracetic acid, and something like that, but
Okay.
it is not enough.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there's no further questions, please join me to thank Dr. İpek again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So our next speaker will be Professor Zaharo Karan from Bangladesh. Professor Karan is a TWAS Fellow in 1998, and he's also advisor from FAO of the United Nations. And he graduated from Soil Science University of Reading in UK in 1977. So he's a renowned expert in the field, in this field of soil science. So the title of Professor Karan is Enhancing Food Security in the Climate Vulnerable Region of Bangladesh. Professor Karan.
Thanks, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. The topic I chose because most of the area how you can security and the farmers' resilience. So that would be the main area of the topic. You know, the Bangladesh is a floodplain country, and by geographic location, it is in the north, the Himalayas, and in the south, the Bay of Bengal. So it has a mixed climatic situations, and we have monsoon, winter, we call by crop season, Rabi and Kharif, but in between there are also. The country, almost 10% of the area is hardly above the 1 meter of the sea level. So it's so close to the sea, and so it's very, very vulnerable to the situation. We have too much water in monsoon and drought in the dry season. The cropping calendar is dictated by the pattern that we mentioned, the rainfall, because the area where the potential evapotranspiration is much below the rainfall, we have monsoon and we have the flood situations. But the area, the pre-Kharif and both post-Kharif, we have drought situation. The situation in Bangladesh, you know, that we have about 150 million people, but have only around 8 million hectares. So, and every year the land is decreasing, and the population is still increasing. So there is a projection by the General Economics Division of the Planning Commission that by 2020 there could be 177 million population. So it's a very great challenge to manage this situation. The agriculture was once the dominant stay for the people of the country. But we have other sectors developed, like garments, some SMEs, and also frozen foods. So that has increased the other sector. Service sector has also increased. So therefore, the agriculture sector has reduced from 34 in late 90s to around 17% now. In the agriculture sector, the crop is the major area because the crop still occupy around 57% of the total cultivated area, and of this, rice is 73% again. So we grow rice in many different seasons. Bangladesh is, the extreme vulnerable countries. Among few, probably it is in the top because of its geographical locations, and for the regions because we have monsoon floods, flash floods, we have drought, and we have also tidal surge in the coastal areas. The type of situation we face, like major events of climatic vulnerabilities, as I mentioned, the drought, cyclone, waterlogging, flood, and bank erosion, is a situation around the coast because we had early 60s, there were protection, the coastal embankments, and many polders. And many of these are now dilapidated. So climate change as well as with the non-maintenance of those structures, the waterlogging has aggravated to this situation. Flood, as you know, in the rural area, we do have flood every year. 1/3 of the country is the normal monsoon flood. But that's how people are living. They have livelihood and support all those activities. But we have devastating floods when people, they cannot stay in their shelter and they have to find food from elsewhere. In last 3 decades, we recorded 5 severe floods, and those were from 87 to 2007. And flood has damaged mostly the infrastructure and killed around 10,000 of people. But the infrastructure damage takes huge resource to rebuild. And in many areas, after the flood of 2007, the infrastructure has not built yet because of so much resources are not available. Drought area, as I mentioned, the drought during Rabi and Kharif, especially the pre-Kharif period. And we grow rice, we call major rice, is transplanted almond rice. And this is grown during Kharif and post-Kharif period. So actually, during this time, early part of the plant, we have enough rainfall, but in the later part, there are severe droughts, and sometimes the yield loss could be as high as 40%. So it becomes severe, and government had to import food grain for drought in several times. Especially major inputs were in 1986, due to droughts. Projected sea level rise, because these are IPCC projection. Bangladesh has a unique type of land. I mean, the land are classified according to normal inundation flood. So normal inundation flood, there are 5 categories. We call them F0 to F4. And when starting, say, from 15 centimeter to 62 centimeter rise, all types of land are affected. First, the land in the lower part, the F0, then F4. But the land which are most productive are F1 and F2. These are also lost because with the inundation of the lower part, that part is also affected. The climate change, as you said, it affects not only agriculture, it affects agriculture, lives and livelihood. And agriculture means agriculture, crop, fisheries, and livestock and forestry. All is affected, and also the livelihood as a major support. And it does also affect the infrastructure because it takes time to rebuild those type of infrastructure. Like if you say in the coastal polder and the embankments, we have to make them climate resilient structure. So that's take huge resources and the cost is there. For crop agriculture, there are many projections and there are many modular made projections, like in the morning session, many projections. And I want to cite few that we grow 46 economic crop in the country. We have a very diversified agriculture. Now, rice is affected in some season, not in all season. And there are projections by the World Bank that there could be 7% yield loss by the year 2025 of the rice. But what is most alarming, that crop like wheat, potato and some temperate crops, with slight increase in temperature, they will not able to grow. So the thing would happen that wheat area has already reduced and potato become very, very vulnerable when we do not irrigate, because this could not be grown without irrigation. And there is in some area the increase in fogginess, and that increased loss of diseases. On the livestock sector, the water and feed has become very scarce because this feed for land and water, you know, it has many uses, and livestock also require the water, and as a result the animal health has reduced, and there are a lot of disease incidences, including parasitic pest. Those are the vectors. Fisheries, you know, is a floodplain country. So almost 3 to 4 years, 1/3 of the country remain inundated. But what has happened with the Green Revolution expansion and with the climate change, no water is there. So the major destruction is the floodplain habitat loss. That was the major fish production, and it was the all poor man's rural people, they used to take the fish from the floodplains. Although the capture fisheries has increased, but this has a cost. It requires culture, feed, management. But the floodplain, you know, if you have water, they used to grow and the habitat is lost. The other fishes like we call SIS, small and indigenous fishes. These are nutrient-dense fish, and this has almost disappeared. So this is a major threat. Carp's culture, and it have reduced because of the saline water intrusion in many areas, and also the pen culture. Sweetwater fish has reduced to a large extent. The agriculture and food security challenges are many, because from that background, I like to say the challenges are that we have to raise the productivity and production. And that would require actually more cultivation or intensive cropping, managing the climate to feed the increasing population. Reduction in yield gap, because still from the station research to the field, farmer's field, the yield gap is large, and that is because of the technology transfer system is not still that efficient, and also the poor farmer, they cannot afford to use all these inputs. Inadequate rural infrastructure and marketing facilities. That is another major threat, that the farmers does not get price, and they lose their incentives of growing those, and reversing the environmental trends. The other challenges are loss and degradation of habitat by natural and human interventions. So the fish habitat lost, and alternate livelihood support to fishers during banned fishing season. Because fish has a breeding time, and government banned some fishing, and in that we have to give them some alternate support for livelihood. And ensuring feed and fodder and control of diseases. What is the most important part of my presentation is the resilient practices that Bangladesh has developed, and farmers are using it with the hearts of the climate situation. And these are raised bed cultivation in saline areas. That is the one of the practice they are doing. They are doing supplementary irrigation from different means, not only mechanized means, from the canal and from their small water resources available, they are doing that. Floating cultivation, that is one of the things that they grow in the coastal regions where land has been inundated, and they are growing mixed type of cultivation, vegetables, and sometimes the high value crops also. And also the rainwater harvesting and the floating fish cum vegetable, they are growing those type of things. The research system in Bangladesh has developed some technologies. For rice, there are few varieties. These are salt tolerant. And also drought tolerant varieties are there. And these are getting popularity. And in some area, farmers are happy that they get good yield of those crops. There are area for submergence tolerance. And they have done some of the variety. IRI and BIRI, Bangladesh Rice Institute, they work together for a long time. And I must say the submergence tolerance could be a breakthrough, and we need to develop many of this type of technology. There are other packages and technologies in potato, in well seeds, sweet potato, pulses in these crops. There are some management practices, as I mentioned earlier, that the farmers' practices. The adoption actions against climate change. I mean, what we need to do is not that the climate change happened all on a sudden. It's happening. So it's the question of slow onset of disaster. Because some parts, the waterlogging is there, salinity intrusion has increased, so slow onset is there, and for that there is need of monitoring and recording slow onset disaster. What is happening where, and recording and make a strong database on that. The support for small-scale coastal and marine fishers, and that is the adoptions, and support for farmers in the drought-prone areas, building agri-diversity in coastal and drought-prone areas. These are for slow. On climate extreme situation, for that we have to improve short-term forecast and early warning system, ensuring supply of agri-inputs, and we have to build shelter for floods, for cyclone, and this we built in the past for human being, but now also for animal there are shelters and those are being built over there. I have seen in some of the shelters, they have severely stored and they grow some nursery also. So because for maintaining the, managing the disaster threats. And we have to promote cultural fisheries and also buffer stock for feed in disaster-prone areas. Because the cattle are very severely affected and many birds are killed in such situation. So for that, we have to build it up. Long-term adaptation actions. I mean, these are really take huge resources on the part of the government, like adjusting flood control structure against sea level rise. So this we need to build in many places. Adjusting irrigation infrastructure, because we have to do a special type of irrigation devices and educating and training for farmers. We have to build their resilience and make their capacity for that. And promoting alternate livelihood strategies, with how they can survive in those. And promoting access to finance through community exchange and insurance markets. Because in many areas, the government provides relief, some support, but the farmers, they want a sustainable type of support, that when it happens, these are areas they could have access to this. The government of Bangladesh has developed a national sustainable development strategies. And in that strategies, the major thing that they like to promote intercropping and short winter season for the production of non-rice crops, because it saves water and also saves land productivity and can manage more harvest. Emphasize on rain-fed cultivation for, especially you mentioned the flood-tolerant almond rice, and also harnessing optimum yield potential and improving the efficiency of agricultural marketing to reduce distortion and cost of marketing products. They conserve aquatic resources and biodiversity. That's one of the major area. And introduce modern techniques of fishing in the coast as well as in the sea, and ensuring feed, control of livestock disease, and also there are, the shrimp and forest and crop, there are conflicts. And this happened in the vulnerable areas, climate vulnerable areas. So we encourage them that there should be zoning for that. it does not only require that, but it also requires the policy actions. And policy actions are like that we have to restrict, government should restrict the conversion of agricultural land to other purposes. And they have to decide whether they can grow the compact township, save our land, or can have different type of practices. Because the infrastructure are building for many purposes, and we cannot destroy all those land. So then there will be no land for cultivation at all. Ensuring farmers to get proper price of their produce and encourage use of balanced fertilizer. Is the question policy is here that we need to subsidize fertilizers. Some of the we have almost 80% of the urea is produced domestically. But the urea, the non-urea fertilizer like potash, phosphate, and other micronutrients, all are almost imported. So in that case, the price is very high, and we need to provide subsidy on that. And we need to strengthen agriculture research and extension, both for the vulnerable regions, and improve performance of water management structure, and promote participatory planning and action research. This is what some of the non-government organizations have started to that region. There are some success. There are cases of improvement and improving the resilience of the rural people. Set aside at least 10% of the wetland area as fish sanctuaries. Because if fish does not have any habitat, there will be no fish growing at one time. So, for enhancing the food security, all these are needed. But most important that we have to revamp R&D for building resilience of farmers. Now, this we have discussed the varietal development, the management practices, and agricultural input supplies. This is what we need to grow and develop tillage practices and mechanization techniques for those type of situation. And tidal zone agriculture practice. Because this is important, we have 2.8 million hectares within the tidal area, but not all are saline. So we need to develop that area and agricultural practices for in the wetland, waterlogged area. Because we do not have much more options to offer the farmers what they could grow. All this what we have said are the policy adaptations and resilience. These are all we need to build, because we cannot take our people just from one side to the another side, because the almost entire country is vulnerable but in different degree. So we have to build their resilience, increase productivity, and keep more resources for building infrastructure for doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Karen, for sharing the situation in the approaches and measures taken by the governments to address this climate vulnerability. I think we have time for discussing one questions. One.
Thank you very much. It's not questions, rather supplementing some information. Since you're talking of the global warming, I have seen through the internet, the size of fish is likely to be smaller in size over the years because of the reduction of diffused oxygen in water. So fish health will be affected due to this fact of global warming. And he has rightly mentioned about the submersible and variety. I just want to add, there is a variety which can tolerate 3 submersions, and then still it can produce something. So that's a good thing that we can adjust cropping under some adverse conditions.
This is a question for you, I think.
No, it's good supplement.
Yeah. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you know the percentage of, I mean, I suppose Bangladesh needs to import foods, I mean, or not?
No, Bangladesh, especially, they don't import rice now.
Okay. So
because we now grow over 35 million ton, but we import food, not only rice,
okay,
like edible oil, pulses, then spices. Most of these are imported.
Okay, I see. Any other questions? If there's no further questions, thanks. Many thanks to Ms. Professor Karan again. Then I'd like to close this first session this afternoon. I think we can have coffee for 25 minutes. So let's come back at 25 past 3. Yeah. Thank you.